Hey there, TYT Sports on RotoWire with Chris Liss's RotoWire.com. Ben Mankiewicz, of course. I'm Heather Ankeny. We're working the waiver in this clip, and that's because Week 3 was an absolute bloodbath with injuries. Quite possibly one of the worst weeks in the NFL, right? AJ Green, huge loss to anybody, especially who drafted him in the first round. DeSean Jackson, Jamaal Charles, Knowshon Moreno, Ryan Matthews. The list just kind of keeps going on and on and on. Who are we targeting? Are we hanging on to all these guys? Are we putting them in hopefully an injured reserve spot, or what?
Well, most NFL leagues don't have injured reserve because there's no DL.
I have one.
There's season. Oh, really?
Yeah, we have an IR spot.
How do you know if he's? How do you qualify for it?
With an O, if he's out.
Oh, he's okay.
It's not. You should include doubtful because nobody's
Equals
out.
out.
Right? Doubtful is out in the NFL, but questionable is probably playing.
Yeah.
It turns out, right?
Well, a couple things about this. One is it really sucks a lot worse when they get hurt in the first quarter than if you just know they're not playing. If you have Doug Martin, you didn't play him, no big deal.
Right.
You have AJ Green, you get a 0. I mean, you get nothing for that. You probably lose your week. But we could talk about some of the pickups, some of the replacements. I think Niall Davis.
Yeah, he's kind of your obvious first.
Number 1.
Okay.
Because
that's Kansas City running back.
It's a high ankle sprain for Jamaal Charles, and we'll know more. But usually those are like 4 to 6 weeks. That's what Roddy White kind of totally derailed the season last year. There's a lot of, that kind of injury is not a week or two usually. And Niall Davis is a top 10 back without Jamaal Charles. He's fast, he's big, he does pretty much everything. He had 2 touchdowns last week.
Oh, and over 100 yards. It's just ridiculous.
He's good.
Yeah. He's good. He's also a good bet unavailable because a lot of Jamaal Charles owners
in a lot of leagues
drafted him, and then a lot of people unhandcuffed him because they thought, I know that guy's going to want Niall Davis. I'll hold on to Niall Davis. Right. So most of my leagues, he's gone. Kerry Robinson, though, available in a lot of leagues, and with Mark Ingram's injury, and we know he's out. We haven't heard yet on Charles as we're taping this, but
right.
Ingram's
but Pierre
out for
Thomas is still there, right?
Yeah, Pierre Thomas is still there, but I think Thomas seems to be used. If they could switch back, but seems to be mostly being used in the passing game, taking the Darren Sproles role. And Kerry Robinson looks like he's going to be the running back taking the Ingram role, and Ingram was getting the ball a lot.
Yeah, I agree with that, and you're right. He's going to be on more waiver wires. I had a couple other guys I wrote. Bobby Rainey, you might have picked him up before, but a lot of waiver wires ran on Wednesday, and you didn't know that Martin was out. Bobby Rainey, I don't know if Doug Martin is going to get that job back when he returns. I don't see any reason for him to get the job back, and who knows when he's going to come back.
Bobby Rainey has now had 3 sensational games.
Right.
So he's not bad. No. Bobby Rainey is a useful player.
What about Donald Brown in San Diego?
Same thing.
Yes, I would pick him up. He was good last year. He was a first-round pick. Danny Woodhead, I still think is going to be sort of a third down change of pace. Yeah, I think Donald Brown's going to start.
Donald Brown's going to start and is capable of putting up Ryan Matthews-like numbers. If you can live with Ryan Matthews' numbers, then you should look at Donald Brown. I have Niall Davis farther down on my list just because I think he's less likely to be available.
Who do you have?
But if he were available, he'd be your top guy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I suppose he'd be the top guy. But I was operating as if Charles wasn't going to be out as long. But if it turns out, you're right, we don't know from a high
ankle sprain is.
No, we know normally. We don't know about his high ankle sprain.
Right.
Yeah, if he's out the same amount of time as Ingram, then Niall Davis is more valuable than Kerry Robinson. Yeah. Mohamed Sanu has some value because AJ Green, we don't know whether he's going to play. But what's interesting and what's worth noting is look at who's off in Week 4. And the Bengals are off in Week 4.
Yeah.
And if you got a guy recovering from turf toe and he didn't play this week, there's a strong coaching temptation to think, I'm going to sit him this week, give him essentially 3 weeks of rest here before we put him back on. That applies too for Ben Tate coming back. He's almost certain going to miss this week because they're off in Week 4. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Carson Palmer, because the Cardinals are off in Week 4, Carson Palmer not play again, which affects all your Cardinals.
But that's something to be mindful of, just saying that Week 4 bye, there's a lot of people on bye, and don't get all excited to pick somebody up who you're not even going to be able to
not use them the next week.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a consideration, but if they're good for the whole year, if they're good, then you just weather it. One other thing about Sanu is no Tyler Eifert, no AJ Green, no Marvin Jones. I mean, they got to throw to somebody.
Yeah, I mean, it's a guarantee that Mohamed Sanu is going to catch 3 balls for 17 yards, because it's too obvious that he's not.
Right.
But yes,
who else are you targeting? James Jones? Oakland?
I am. I like James Jones. Yeah, because they got to throw to somebody. James Jones has produced.
They don't have to throw to somebody.
I don't like James Jones, but you like James.
I've always liked James Jones because he was always a quality receiver. Caught the ball like all the Packers catch the ball have for years with their hands out front, and he has produced as the 4th receiver, third or fourth receiver in Green Bay. And now is an opportunity. I don't buy Rod Streeter, and this is a veteran receiver who 8 years he's been in the league, and a rookie quarterback who seemed to be looking to his veteran receiver.
I didn't realize he had 9
Streeter's
catches.
banged up also, but I will just say about James Jones, he dropped a lot of passes in Green Bay.
He did.
And if you were playing receiver for Aaron Rodgers, he would make you look like a quality receiver, and then when you went to be the #1 receiver on a crappy team, before going to the hospital immediately when you got hit, you would not look as good.
That's it. I agree.
Yeah, but he caught 9 balls.
He caught 9 balls for a bunch of yards and a bunch of targets.
All right.
And Derek Carr is unlike many rookie quarterbacks. Derek Carr looks to me like a guy who's going to have an NFL career. I don't know how good an NFL career, but he's a functional player.
Tight end, you mentioned earlier Ben Delaney Walker, if he's not already available.
We'll put up those stats again from the big performers in week 1 if we could. We ran that in another clip. But Delaney Walker, you see him there. He's 3rd on the list. He caught 10 balls for 142 yards. And he's a professional.
In 2 games, right? Over the first 2 games.
Professional?
No, I thought this was just. Oh, this is the first 2 games. Yeah, right. No,
it isn't.
No,
this
one game.
This weekend. Oh wow, he just did this against
Dallas. Those are Jordy
Nelson.
Nelson's numbers.
Right.
So he had a ferocious game, and he's a good player. And there aren't, Kendall Wright. There aren't a lot. Other than that, there aren't a lot of weapons in Tennessee. And Jake Locker seems like the kind of quarterback who's going to throw to the tight end. So I really like Delaney Walker. I also like, as a tight end, I really like Niles Paul, who Washington has had for a while. He and Kirk Cousins were working all camp as the second team behind Jordan Reed. They appear to have a chemistry. Right. Jordan Reed's got a hamstring. It doesn't appear that he's about to come back. He's a good player, Jordan Reed. But I think Paul is certainly worth owning while Reed is out, if not after that. They've always liked him, and he was a receiver, and he's converted to tight end. He knows, so I like Niles Paul a lot.
It's a good point that sometimes the backup QB and the backup players that they practice with connect
because they're
better.
roommates. Yeah. Well, staying in Washington, let's end with Kirk Cousins. Are you picking him up?
Not really.
No. Really?
I mean, he's just.
I would.
In a 1 quarterback league, it's just kind of like there's QBs everywhere to be had.
Yeah, but starting week 4, your bye week, 9 and 10, if RG3 doesn't come back.
I think that Kirk Cousins as a replacement quarterback is fine. And I bet you think that too. Like he's okay because he might throw for 250 yards and throw 2 scores, and you will survive in that spot. But you keep in mind, everybody who loves Kirk Cousins in Washington, and all the people who wanted a quarterback change, who I don't quite understand, he looked good 2 years ago. Yeah. He was terrible last year. Right. He looked really bad. He looked good this week. So I hope he plays well. But by the way, 3 Michigan State quarterbacks, 3 Michigan State backups winning. Hoyer, Cousins,
I love Ben Mankiewicz
and Stanton.
I love your facts.
It was a good week for Michigan State backups. Yeah.
All right.
Michael Schur made that point.
Thanks, guys.